Hi, everybody. This is Martha Creek. It is my honor to be here with you tonight, and I thank you for your time in being. And the call is being recorded, and at any time, if you don't want to be recorded, you simply notify me. Please stop the recording, and I certainly will do that. I want to honor the space here in that way. We also will likely be in small groups for discussion, dialogue, as that's a significant part of this healing, I believe, from my own personal experience. And none of those small group or breakout rooms are recorded. So none of that is being recorded, just the presentation part of this. Also, I'll be introducing Milagros Phillips, putting her website up here, the author of this book and the one that we're using for this study, which is Cracking the Healer's Code, a prescription for healing racism and finding wholeness. So it's meant a lot to me. I've been able to interview her, the author, because she's an honoree of the Walden Awards, which is the 8 New Thought organizations that get together and look at who's doing the most kind of significant work out in the world. So that's how I met her. And then it was important to me to get this book out as a part of my own actions. So I'm a part of this book being put out into the world, and it's acknowledged in the first few pages, the people that made that possible. So it's not a requirement. I encourage you, if you're into reading or books, to be sure to get it. It's hopefully you'll find it transformational, healing, and helpful, as I have, even a portion of what I've done. Also, I've been cautioned that coming onto these classes, for some, anything that's got a topic of racism in it, there's been folks coming in for the matters of disrupting the class and other things. And should that happen, I'll remind you at any time you can leave the meeting. So it's important to know how to leave the meeting so that you're not traumatized by something if somebody tried to present in a way that's inappropriate or hurtful or harmful, and that you have the responsibility to leave the meeting should something like that occur. I cannot take that responsibility for you. And certainly I hope and pray and declare that that's not for our experience, and I cannot know what our experience is set to be. I also, if leaving the meeting doesn't shut the meeting down and it became necessary, if there was something more violent, then I would actually go to Zoom and cancel the meeting. So that would mean then starting over with a new code, and we wouldn't try to do that tonight. We would do it next week when we are coming back. In the original plan for this, Milagros had planned on being here with us, and I'd planned on her being here with us and got a mix up in the calendar. So she will actually be here next week. And you've heard me say many times that studied with me and healed through with me and other matters, that when you think it can't get any better, it does. So I think it's going to be even better for us to have some orientation to the material in the book before she actually comes on and you get to meet her. And I'll put her website up in a minute, so you'll be able to see her and how to contact her. So kick back a little bit. Welcome, Joy. Sorry for the trouble, honey. Hi, Kitty, Christina, all of you glad you're in here. Let me introduce Sanja, who's here. Would you wave, honey? Reverend Sanja's here, Sanja Mathis. And she will be, when we go out into groups, she'll be part of our listener and holding space with you. And she's also here on purpose to co-facilitate, to bring in different perspectives. And it means the world to me, honey, to have all of you here, particularly for you to say yes to Sanja for this, so that it's not us, just us wanting to do better, wanting to do right, white people in here, trying to do good and not even knowing sometimes what good is. And that you would come in here, honey, to bring your own direct perspective of this. And any of you with different origins, and Bill, thank you, honey, for being here, taking the time out to do it, and Deborah for being in partnership with that. So here we go. So at any time, there'll be time for questions, of course. I want to present on a little bit about Let me see who this is. I'll be reading a little bit from the book and introducing it in that way. And there'll be time then, of course, for questions and that as we proceed. So the course is dedicated. We'll be meeting 5 Tuesdays. You're welcome to invite anybody that wants to come on the call to join. Each class is a freestanding class, so you don't have to be here tonight, for example, to come in next Tuesday and to still learn from it and to jump right in. The course is dedicated to a global family. A global family. Those who are ready, like me, like you, to transform our original conditioning, and I'm using the term purposefully, conditioning to transform, to heal, to return to our nature, to our wholeness, and to understand that all matters of violence, racial violence, any other form of violence is violent on who is extending it and who is receiving it. So I will put in the chat my interview with Milagros Phillips. It's also on my website. If you don't get it out of the chat, you can go to my website and look at those interviews down there, Mentoring Moments with Martha. And I'll also put a way to contact her. The feedback from the book so far is that people report that they have healed relationships with coworkers, relationships with family members, transforming the way we feel about ourselves, which is very important to me. And it's my primary motivation, that I'm all about my own internal healing and taking responsibility for my own soul and the integrity of my soul's unfolding, my soul's progression. And I know when doing the work that I've done, not just this, that any healing I do here, then my relationships are positively affected too, as well as workplaces, organizations. It's also then all matters are affected. If quantum theory is true, there's nothing we can heal here that is not healed in the whole, whether we ever see it or not. So this includes our teams and neighborhoods and organizations. There will be difficult matters spoken about here. We will definitely have discomfort. So I'm encouraging you to open to the discomfort, to allow for it, and to do your best to give it some space, and then to take deep breathing through it, watch how your body is feeling, what the feedback of your body is, and to not do your best to interrupt any pattern that you may have when you reach an area of discomfort. So to allow for the discomfort, so to speak. In the book, chapter 34 refers to the prescription. So even though it's the last chapter in the book, I want to start with that chapter. And to say a little bit about this, because part of each week as I present here, I'll be asking us, as we're going to do at the Anton conference coming up in the end of September, where Milagros will be presenting there, the author, is called Convergence. Love, learn, decide, do. That's the subtitle. So that's also the subtitle for this class. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to keep love as a high priority to myself and to others, regardless of race, religion, differences, or anything. And I'm going to decide about something, and I'm going to do something about something. So I'll be asking you what you're learning, encouraging you what you're decided to do, and then I'll be asking what you're going to do about that as you do your own reflections. From the chapter, it says, this is Albert Einstein, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And looking at our history, so I'd like you before next week, if you would, to look up something called the Doctrine of Discovery. Doctrine of Discovery. It's a historical document from the 1400s. It's seldom referred to except in matters like this, and is still governing us even today. And just a few years ago, it was used in a Supreme Court case, even though it was written that many hundreds of years ago. So get familiar with the doctrine of discovery if you can. And our belief, unresolved belief of not enoughness, which is underpinning a lot of this. So on the macro level, our personal level here, the idea that we are not enough hovers around all of matters of I'm not tall enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, and even with race, not light enough, not this enough, not this enough. So there's nobody that's immune from this, not influential enough. And I can tell you that this not enoughness and this fear of doing it wrong almost stopped me from entering into this arena. It almost stopped me from doing this work. And I simply couldn't live with myself anymore, because even though that fear's there, that I'll do it wrong, politically incorrect, use the wrong verbiage, call somebody by the wrong name, the wrong pronoun, the wrong, is it African-American, people of color, black skin, brown skin? I was so worried and intent on doing it right that I was paralyzed in doing much of anything. So the fear of that still exists here in me. And the difference is I will not let it stop me anymore. So I will not hurt anyone intentionally. And I have hurt people unintentionally. And it could be that you feel hurt in something that I say or present, and it is without intention. And I'm absolutely willing to hear about your hurt and to do my very best to reconcile it and to make it right, should that be the case. The thinking that we're not enough to change the world, that what I know, what coming onto this class won't matter that much. I believe it matters supremely. What I learn, what you learn, I believe actually does matter if you believe in quantum theory. So what we're learning tonight is changing the spectrum of all that is. So I come to it that wholeheartedly. And if it's true, and we've got history to prove that even in our own families, that the sins of the father, the sins of the previous generations, the sins of the mother, father, the lineage of that is handed down 7 generations, then I know in certainty that this time we're spending here tonight is to determine that we're going to hand something down to the next 7 generations besides what was handed down to us. So that's part of my motivations and part of my objectives. So then let me ask you then to take a minute, and I'll encourage you to write if you can find something pretty quick to write on. What drew you to the class? What is your motivation for being here? If you use the chat and you want to put it right in the chat, you can. It's not necessary. It's private work if you want to keep it private. Glad you made it in here, Uta. Good to know you.
Yes, thank you.
So what drew you here to the class? What's motivating you to engage in this? What do you hope to get from it? Uda says, I'm looking for more perspectives. I want to challenge my worldview. and I'm ready to be pushed out of a comfort zone. And it's so powerful, honey, to even read that, because I think what we've called a comfort zone is not much of one. And we absolutely are in one that's not comfortable, chronically anxious with a what's considered a health crisis by many states, which you'll read about, or maybe I'll speak about one week, about how many states that's deemed this to be literally a health crisis. Thank you, Cheryl. Some of my closest friends are people of color, and I want to show up with awareness. It's one of my key words too, honey, awareness, to engage in more conversations with people on these topics, deeply committed to healing, and I want to be a healing space. Sanja, anything you want to say, honey, about what motivated you, what called you to come in here? Let us know a little bit about you.
Well, hello. I'm glad to be here with you all in this opportunity, which it is. It's a great opportunity to be a part of a healing, and the part that I can play based on my experiences and what I live, my experiences and my current experiences. I want to be a part of something new, where everyone is trying to translate, transform, transmute. And so, but Martha and I had a good conversation last week about, our idea and expectation of this class. And so I'm here because I want to support her, but I felt like it would be a good way just to support all of us. And as Martha just said, the quantum idea of it, any work we do, individually and collectively, goes forth, and it does a healing. And so I want to be a part of that. I thought it would be a beautiful thing, and so I'm glad to be here for that reason.
Thank you, sweetheart. So one of the primary motivations for me is understanding that there's history that I haven't heard of before. There's history I wasn't taught. There's history I don't know. Some of that is depicted in these chapters on history. For example, I have been a follower, and I've used Abraham Lincoln's teachings as an enlightened leader. The movie about his life moved me and what he had to live through and making the decisions. I was proud that somebody took a stance to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. Then I read also in this history that's presented in this book that the year before the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, there was also a bill signed offering slave owners $300. So that's not talked about. Now, I'm not saying that wasn't presented in my school or in my class, but I can tell you I had no memory of that. So it's like there's larger context for what was going on. So I want more of the history. I want all the history and not parts of it. And I want to be able to present all of it as I understand it without leaving out the parts that may not be so popular or that keep us looking better because we did something that would be maybe considered good. I'm reading again. We crack the healer's code through our understanding, new understandings, connecting the dots, and getting a more holistic view of what is actually the problem and the effects. We crack the healer's code by seeing life as a continuum. It moves from day to day, year to year, decade to decade, and yes, generation to generation. This is not a new idea to me. It's just I was naive and even clueless to the extent that this is in what my coach would say, my bones and blood. And what's in my bones and blood, genetically, epigenetically, and whether I'm aware of it or not, it's affecting the way I see things, the frameworks, the viewpoints I have, my worldview. We crack the healer's code by realizing that nothing is random. Everything, every place, and everyone has a history, and we're inextricably linked to that history by a powerful thread that is called life. We crack the healer's code by creating a strategy that strengthens our belief in wholeness. Now, this is one of the key concepts that caused me to pick this particular book for my foundational pieces and my deeper exploration. wholeness, a belief in wholeness, a human family. And we practice it until we can see who we really are and how we can further awaken to who we really are. Until we see that nothing has altered the truth. Nothing has altered the truth about us that lives as truth within us. And until we see the reasons we have resilience is because we, in spite of all that we have lived through, all that you have lived through, you're still whole. You are still whole, that your circumstances, these traumas and that do not define you. And it's my favorite part of humanity, the resilience, the capacity to live through that and get up and dust off and go for it again, to carry on in some way, in spite of it all. So it is from wholeness, this wholeness, that our resilience come. And that's my favorite word besides gratitude. And that is what I'm working to cultivate here as I proceed and as I witness you in this. So we'll be looking at history, to become race literate, to look to the past so that we can understand the present, and to debunk the myths of race. And then secondly, new understandings, to understand that we have been conditioned racially and other ways through hundreds of years of physical, emotional, spiritual, mental misunderstandings, misrepresentations, violence. And then with this understanding, use the healer's code to understand where me, where I, where you, where your family, your company, your community, your country are in the process of healing. And to remember, we all absorbed the conditioning at various levels, and depending on where we fall in the caste system, etc. Therefore, everyone needs healing. We all need healing. To be compassionate, more compassionate. And for me, as I wrote this, like the first thing I wrote down in my notes was, I don't know what I don't know. And that would have scared me to start, like it's so big. I've got to know it. I can't know it. I must know it, instead of I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not going to let it stop me. So I encourage you, like me, to be patient with yourself, with the other folks here, and to also not to be silent. Do your best to speak what is true and authentic for you, and knowing that big feelings are likely going to be a part of this. And again, that we're here to make a difference, and we are making a difference, even if it's only planting seeds that we may never, none of us may ever sit under the shade of the trees we're planting tonight, and we'll plant anyway. While some may use words such as racist as a character judgment based on dichotomous thinking, racism is actually about conditioning. So we're now starting to treat racism as a condition, and therefore can be treated, understood, transformed, healed. And then the third piece is to do something. Insist on facts. We cannot heal on a lie. And remember that the misinformed are bound to miscreate. The misinformed are bound to miscreate. You are the only one who can change you. You're the only one that you're responsible for, and that you are whole, and that you are enough. So we proceed knowing who we are. So let's pause here and see, just catch up. Notice your body, the sensations you've had in hearing some of these terms, some of the reading, some of the objectives said, and just present yourself and notice how the how the body's reacting so far. And pause like this as we proceed, as every time you notice this, to allow this as much as you can, and to then through a deep breath or surrender or whatever works for you, to come back into presence instead of into your patterned way, which could be to shut down or zone out, or feel, sometimes I feel like it's too much. So I feel like I've lost coherency or something like that. So it's a shutting down, a mechanism of shutting down without me wanting to. It's just a glazed over kind of something. So catch it if you can, if it starts to happen, and then present yourself any way that you can. Any immediate feedback, questions, comments on anything you've heard so far? Deborah.
I wanted to speak to why I'm here. Can you hear me?
Perfectly, yes.
I wanted to speak to why I'm here. I have kind of lived in two worlds since 1969. And I always felt that there was nothing I could do. And I had these great fears that in like the 70s, where the race wars and threats about Black versus white, I always felt, how would I choose a side? And I'm feeling that way again. And when you called to say hello and talked about this class, I had looked at it when you first announced it, and I said, oh, well, I've lived a lot of this stuff and I don't need to be here. But then I read the introduction of her book, and I was like, oh my goodness, she remembers that awareness that she had, and I remember my awareness, and she hurts from things, and she's an artist, and there was just so much like, I have to be here. But the final thing that got me to be here is where she said, there are things you can do about it. So I'm here to learn what I can do, what I can put into this whole transformation.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. I appreciate you coming in and whatever prompted you for that. So let's see then what an embodiment of this might look like and feel like. So take a deep breath or two, and then silently or aloud, say the word racist, racism, racist. Notice the effects on the body in the emotional field. And then another deep breath. And say the words peace, the word peace. Three times the word peace. And what'd you observe? Like mine is race, even just race, the root word race, racist, racism is like an avalanche of sadness through me. Like a tsunami of sadness. Bill?
It was subtle, but saying words slowly and just kind of softly to myself, there's an edge when I say the word racist or racism. There's more of a softness, a lull when I say the word peace. That was it.
Thank you, Bill. You know, I believe, you know, you've heard that the truth has a resonance to it. And for me, it's like peace then is the truth. And this other is from the conditioning. So Marcia, go ahead, honey.
With the racism, I immediately felt a constriction in my core and a separation, just aloneness, a separation. And then peace completely blew that out, completely shattered the barrier and expanded everything again. It was amazing.
Thank you. Anybody else? Just unmuted for me. Sandra, what happened with you, honey?
Very similar. When I said racism, just like there was definitely like a stagnation, a resistance, but immediately upon saying peace, I started yawning, like something needed to be released. And so, yes, that's my share. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I felt that constriction with racist kind of came out like a razor. It was a cutting, constricted feeling, and peace was just open. It was easy.
I like that that rainstorm is significant, honey, whatever's going on there.
Yeah, I felt like that too. It's a pretty big storm, which is why it came out to be in it. I'm like, yeah, this is totally appropriate.
Okay.
Martha, can I go?
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, similarly, I felt with racism, I felt anxiety, I felt tightness in my chest, and I had this feeling of like drama, like intense drama. And with peace, I felt calm and oneness and expansion and freedom.
Thank you for speaking in, honey. Marcia, did you say what you wanted to say, honey? Okay. So I want to share some of my experiences that was my primary impetus to really roll up my sleeves and to quit avoiding this particular arena. And as I hear stories, more and more stories, so I committed last year to read the personal accounting, because I can read history and some level of me, I comprehend it, but I was so numb to it that I felt like it was like a rock and the water couldn't get in. But as I read people's personal accountings of what they were living through, trust me, it got in. So the rock had no solidness about it. So some of them included reading a story about a professor, and it was titled The Professor and the Burrito, something like that. And it was a 27-year tenured professor that went out to lunch right beside his university to get a burrito. And he got out of his car and policemen surrounded him. Lights and horns and violence, handcuffed, and him saying, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Shut up. You don't ask any questions. We ask all the questions. So that went on, and he said it went on and on and on. And the most he could get out of it was they got a complaint that a lady in the neighborhood called and said she thought someone was going to break in her home. And you fit the description, and the only description that they had was that he was Black. He said he prepared himself that that would be the day he died, because under no circumstances was he going to get in that police car. No way, no how was he going to get in that police car. So he was preparing himself to die, to let this be his last day. Then he said somebody in a suit showed up in a different, like more like a detective or something, not a uniform. And he thought maybe this is going to be some help. And then he said, I thought this is not help. This is not a helper. This is somebody that's sophisticated to further trip me up. So you can likely read about this. I don't have it anymore. It was presented as factual. There's no doubt in my mind that it is, and it was absolutely for my healing. And that went on, and they finally let him go without an apology, without any remorse or regret about how long they had detained him, what they had said to him, how he had been treated physically and emotionally. And he said that he couldn't move. He was paralyzed, just shaking in his shoes, and was able to get back in the car, and then couldn't drive. And then eventually made it back to his office and still couldn't speak for several hours to even speak about what had happened. That was one. Then another man said, for example, Martha, if you get your neighbor's mail, your neighbor's Amazon package is left on your porch, what would you do with the package? And I said, I'd pick it up and take it and put it on my neighbor's porch. And he said, yeah, see, I can't do that because I can't be seen in that neighbor's yard. I cannot be seen on that neighbor's porch, even to do a kindness, to just put their package over there. So instead, I have to call UPS and wait for it to pick up and let them put the package on my neighbor's porch. And then one of you on this call, on this class right here tonight, told me that your son-in-law will not drive a car from his house to his job because of how he has been targeted in the past. And when he drove, he put little stickers on his car that made it look like he had a wife and kids and a family, because the facts are about it, they're targeted less than a single Black man. And that they had to live somewhere that he could ride a bike to work or a scooter. So their choices on where they lived had to be in that kind of proximity to where they worked. So think about this and your own experiences of this. Then I want to put you over into a breakout room, and there's people in the room that are prepared for these kind of conversations. And Reverend Sandra will be in one of the rooms, and Julie and Kitty will be in one of them, and Reverend Christina, Karen, who's done a lot of this work, and then Bill and Deborah, and Marcia, and another one. So go over and have a conversation here. We'll just do this for 5 or 6 minutes, and see, how would you answer this question? Like, how can we make sense of this? How can you make sense of the injustices? And how can you make sense of it based on these historical conditioning that we're all under to some degree. And then talk a little bit about then maybe something I've learned tonight, something I'm more open to tonight, a new understanding you have, and something you know you can do. So for example, I wouldn't tease somebody about riding a scooter or a bicycle to work, because I have no idea what prompted them to do that. And a feeling of not being safe. I learned at the Unity Convention where somebody presented mindfully and purposefully on diversity, equity, inclusion, that it is hurtful to call a master bedroom a master bedroom, and to call it a main bedroom because of the connotations of the master bedroom. Things I would not ever, I wouldn't even, this wouldn't occur to me. So this is things that I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So what have you learned? Any new understanding? Any experience you want to share? And then what's something you think you can do between now and next week as we proceed into this finding wholeness, returning to our wholeness, and then healing, using this study as a prescription for healing. So off you go. I'll pop in some of the rooms, and then we'll come back here in 5 or 6 minutes. So I'll be the timekeeper. Don't worry about that. Notice your feelings, care for yourself. Try not to be silent. So speak if you can. And I'll see you back here in just a few minutes. Welcome back, friends. Anybody want to share what was your experience? What did you hear? What have you learned? What are you going to do? Just raise your hand and wave. Remember, you can't do it wrong. As long as we don't harm.
I missed what you just said, Martha. It got cut off.
Thank you, Karen. I just welcome back, honey, and let me know anything about what you've learned, what you're going to do, something maybe that you're taking away from tonight's class.
Thanks.
Jack.
Yeah, I think we got to remember too that racism isn't something that just started like, with Mr. Floyd or, with the Civil War or even that. I mean, people have been hating each other forever. There's been wars since day one. And that's pretty much an ingrained thing. And I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people to let go of that and come back to a feeling of mutual love and respect for one another.
Definitely, honey. That's thank you for speaking it, Jack. That's part of the conditioning. Yes, and it's since the beginning of time, since the beginning of creation, and on multiple levels, and for multiple reasons. So, and I know that the thought that is so daunting that because it's been around since creation, then it's like, can we really make a difference? That kind of thought that I can't really make a difference, or there's too much inertia of this would stop me from doing anything, and I'm not willing for that anymore. So we'll do what we can. Anybody else?
One thing I would like to share, I have a friend in one of my ACIM, A Course in Miracles groups. And, you know, being here in the South, a lot of her family, when they gather for Thanksgiving and holidays, there's a lot of racist statements made, and she doesn't care for them. And so, you know, what she said she started doing in recent years, when they just start going in and saying all those ugly things, she'll say, "No, you're better than that." She in the loudest voice, "You are better than that." And she, who's gonna say, "No, I'm not. I'm really not better than that." And so she said the table goes quiet. They stop, and you know, and she said at least for that setting, it stops. She said every year it gets a little better. It gets a little better. So she's being the catalyst for change in her family. But she said she'll point a finger. "No, you're better than that." You know.
Well, that inspires me to hear it, I'll tell you, because I've often wanted to say something and didn't know what to say. And I didn't want to get more confrontive, or I didn't want to be violent on the violent. I didn't want to be prejudiced on the prejudice. So this is beautiful for me to hear. Just simply say, I have said, I'm so uncomfortable hearing this, I won't be able to go on. So I'm going to have to step out or ask you to refrain from this or something. I don't agree with this. So I've been able at times to muster the courage to say something, but this gives me a whole different framework for it, honey. So thank her and go thank her for me.
I will. I will call. I'll text her tonight. Yes.
Yeah. So something you can do. What can you do? And in the book, and this came right out of the book, as we go through this, I know that it's I don't know, I feel like it's activated more sadness in me, and I'm willing for that. I'm also knowing that I've got to take special care of myself as I take on the layers and the depths of the sadness. So some of the prescriptions include, these are right out of the book, to take a love shower. So literally while you're in the shower, let it be a love shower over you. And if it's been a particularly rough patch or rough day, or this has kind of got its hooks in you, to do another one. So it may be a 2 shower day. So a love shower or 2 love showers a day, something to go for a walk, to literally go out and put your feet in grass. Flowers will do it for me. Just looking into the face of a flower or touching a flower, something like that. Sitting on grass. One of the recommendations was to take a magnifying glass, which I finally got into. Like, I wish I had my mama's now. I wish I'd have kept her magnifying glass, and to take that magnifying glass out into nature and look at leaves and stems and flowers, because it reminds me of the holistic nature of us. And what a speck I am in the whole scheme of things. Trade a TV show maybe for a nature walk or some music. And one of my friends did this at Loretto when we were down there for some of our immersion and intensives work, and that was to go skipping, to actually skip. Now, if you end up in the hospital, I don't want to hear a word about it, that you tried to skip. So skip, or pretend you're skipping, or imagine skipping. And then this deep breathing, some of that we've done tonight. And then to practice gratitude, which is, I told you at the beginning, it's my favorite word in the whole world. So it's not just to speak gratitude, but to look for things that I can praise, and look for how to dial up my gratitude practice when I'm feeling heavier or kind of sad, a deeper sadness. So I know you'll find your way too. So I put in the chat Milagros Phillips website. That's how you can get the book if you want it right through there, or go right to Amazon. She's also got these things I participate in called Lunch and Learn. So it's 1 hour, one Monday a month, Lunch and Learn. So that's how I get historical data and context. That's how I keep up with really what's going on in the news, current events. It's how I also dial up my practice. So encourage you, if you want to join that. And then come back next Tuesday. And apologies for the trouble tonight. And I've asked the new and workable website to go out. So please send it out to anybody you want, and it'll be coming out from my webmaster as well. Okay, anything before we close?
Oh, hi, Martha. Diane here. I just wanted to say, can you hear me?
I can hear you and I'm glad you're,
Yeah, you said hello from Canada, by the way. And we've met when you were here at Unity Mississauga. But you said some things that really struck me quite deeply. And that was that racism is a condition, that we're conditioned to that, just like we're conditioned to so many things. Advertising, negative thinking, fear, what have you. And it is daunting to think, well, what can I do? But you also said something else that I thought was very profound. Racism is a condition and it can be healed, but we may not sit under the trees that we plant. So even if we do small incremental things, we don't know what the positive effect of that would be on others.
no. And not for me, not to let it stop me from doing something.
You know,
Yes.
Martha, I think based on what you were just saying, it's like the butterfly effect. You know, Reverend Sonia's, was it your grandmother, your aunt, said, you're better than that? They planted a seed and it gets better every year. And, all these little seeds we're doing, we may, like you said, we may not see them, but it'll still be the butterfly effect because eventually it'll become a storm. It may take a while to get to the storm level, but, we can start with the small wins.
Amen. Amen, Bill. My deepest thanks for you being here. And my deepest thanks for how I feel when I think about each and every one of you. And just knowing you're out there is a gift to me. So,
Well, thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martha.
Thanks for you. Thank you.
all right, till we meet again.
All right, till next time.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye,
See you next week, everyone.
Bye.
Everybody
night.
have a blessed week.
You
Thank
too.
Thank you.